Wow, have I been buying up a storm this week. I have been all over the state of Florida. I have had appointments with people with private collections. I've had pickers who got stuff for me. I bought from a retiring dealer and a collector and a viewer, and it's just been so much fun to spend $4,000 this week. I'm going to show you some of what I bought. Some of this will be coming to the antique shows in Florida. I've got West Palm Beach coming up this weekend. Boy, do I have the stock now. Let's take a look at some of what I got. You really want to be creating art and doing things. Yeah.
You know, I mean, these are some of my paintings.
I really like that. All the makeup, some of it has to go somewhere else. Boy, there's so much I like. And this is how it started. I went from a private collection of boudoir items in Sarasota, Florida, all the way across state to Daytona Beach. Then I got to get some jewelry in St. Augustine, and I got to go to Beverly Hills and meet one of my favorite pickers. Here's the serious table. I spent about $1,500 for everything on the table here. It's just wonderful to get a great collection, like I was talking about before. These are little perfume bottles, purse perfumes, 1940s, 50s, 60s. The one in the box is silver. A whole lot of these pieces are silver, and that's why they cost some money, but they were worth it. Little Napier owl pin from the 1970s is cute. I had just sold out of mesh purses, and all of a sudden I got 5 in this collection, so that was very good timing. This one is a Mandalian, so is this one. And this one even has its tag for the new process. Mandalian was competitive with Whiting and Davis in the days of the flappers. Whiting and Davis still survives. Raw coral, raw turquoise, any of those raw stones, if I find a good deal, and I thought this was good enough at $10, I pick those up. This long beaded necklace is terminating in a lapis design. But the real stars of this collection are all these little purse perfume bottles. A lot in guilloche, this patterned enameling from the 1920s, made in France. This one is hand painted. They gave me the case too. I see they must have had an animal, so I'll have to do a little cleaning there. Very pretty pieces. A lot of these should sell for between $75 and $100. Some of these have daubers in them. Some of these are big enough to possibly also have a powder puff or hold coins. It's just a great collection, and to get it all in one place, it was really fun. Also a number of Queen Victoria emblems from her jubilees, watch fobs, ribbons that people would wear. She, of course, seems very stern, and I believe this fob commemorates one of the jubilees. So a fun collection that I wasn't expecting. When I got the call on this set, I really only knew about the perfume, so I ended up buying a whole lot of other things, including some turquoise rings. This is a cool pin from the 1970s. It's got really great little heart-shaped stones, but it is missing one. That might be a hard shape to repair. I'm going to contact Rhinestone Rosie's in Seattle and see what she can do for me. And then we have compacts. Some 1950s, some little boodle bags like this from the 19-teens and 20s. That's turned out where you can see the design properly. And then a bunch more that are guilloche. If they're painted, they're better. These colors are good. They have to be in great condition, which all of these are. This is a private collection, and some people are more careful in their collecting than others, but a lot of boudoir people tend to be very particular about the condition of the items that they get. And I'm just so excited. Now, this one has a little bit of greening, so it was less expensive, but that should be something I'm able to clean. That means that one is not silver. More beaded bags. The gold one is a Whiting and Davis of more recent vintage, probably 1980s. The little coin purse, I'm sure, is German. And then there's this really nice beaded bag with a Givenchy chain laying across it. A few little charms, the Millefiori pendant. These earrings are Coro. And also got a Coro duet pin from the 1930s. And this really fun Revlon compact from about 1960 in its original box. I spent a lot of money on this collection, but it's nice to have little things that are worth a lot. It will definitely make my jewelry case look special again. I'd sold a lot of my better and more interesting jewelry pieces, so now this will reinvigorate it. Valentine's Day is around the corner, so I went for a lot of red and white. I'm particularly fond of this Fenton basket. It is one of the newer Artline pieces, but it is hand painted and it has the signature on the bottom. This one also has the handler's tag. Each person who applied the handles at a certain point was given a tool so they would know who had finished off the handle, because in the old days, if the handle wasn't set right, you'd have breakage. Well, these folks had done handle application strictly for many years, and they decided that they deserved some credit for that, which I think is kind of a neat idea. Tree ring look is Ronald Barley up in the right corner. Always like this early 1970s era Spanish lace pattern. The cake stand is a good piece that has some value. The ruby compote is from the same era. I think Indiana Glass did the nice daisy piece from the 70s on the left. And of course, shell encrusted anything in Florida is a good idea. Little travel clocks seem to sell. This is a little barware shelf for cocktails for two on Valentine's Day. This is a French decanter from the late 60s. I really like them when they have the bridge set. You see other patterns on them as well. This is not the right stopper. It's actually supposed to be a little more squarish, but it sits really well in there, and it was only $3. So we're just going to represent it as not being original, but it'll work great. These have nice little controlled bubbles inside, as you see. And then this was 1967 to 8 only. Viking Glass for that year did these double layers where it's almost like a bowl inside a bowl. They didn't cost much more than the other style, and they were more expensive to make and a lot heavier to ship. So they didn't stay in the line for long, and they're a little more valuable as a result. Nice ruby here in the Viking Glass compote. And yes, around the edges where it goes to the orange, you will get cadmium glow. It's not an all-over glow like uranium glow. Camart pottery, 1930s. This has the Arkansas state sticker on it. And then because Valentine's, well, of course, we have a Fenton heart-shaped nappy and a Costa Boda painted paperweight. This is 1950s era shower curtain fabric. It is just fabulous with the flamingos and the palm trees. It's this textured plastic. It's just the neatest thing, and there's a whole roll of it. You could do probably a whole wall panel. It's really neat up in front of light. Modern glass pieces that could also work in a traditional environment. The two on the left, Baccarat, or the one on the far left, and Costa before they merged with Boda in Sweden. This is from about 1970, and I like the modernist butterfly. And then this appears to be a Pilgrim Glass cranberry ivy ball. Ivy ball being because they would arrange flowers with ivy coming out and spilling over the edges of those. I like this pattern. It's sort of a modified chevron. I don't believe that they were making this pattern when we were involved with them, but they came out with cranberry glass in 1968, and you can tell by the polish here that it is a Pilgrim piece. A big old John Perry seagull. I got a bunch of John Perry to show, and I'll be bringing a lot of that to Florida show. So I bought a lot of Floridiana and beachy looking things, although these are more traditional, but very cute. On the left here, we've got the Brush McCoy vase. You can tell it's Brush McCoy because of the big S in the middle. It's not marked with a McCoy mark because Brush and McCoy really started to separate at some time around this. Basket in the middle is Fenton, and that's a very pretty one from the Millennium series, so about 25 years old. And then this little heliotrope piece is over 125 years old with that scarred pontil. This is a nice little piece of Bristol glass in a jack-in-the-pulpit form, and I thought the color was really good. Speaking of color, if you folks are uranium glass collectors, I'm going to have a bunch of custard glass by Fenton, but I also added a bunch of green depression, and there's some really fun pieces here. All of this does glow, even these Fostoria candle holders in the front. I mixed it with Belique because, you know, we have St. Patrick's Day coming, and we do like to merchandise for holidays and different decorating themes throughout the year. And of course, there's kitchenware as well. This is the knife and block pattern from the 1930s, and I like this ribbed reamer. That's a very straightforward style. These cute little gals are Dealey from California, and Dealey was in business in the 1940s and early 50s. Royal Worcester egg coddlers. People always seem to like these sets. I buy them every time I see them. I don't know that many people who coddle eggs, but there's just something about them. They're charming, and they seal really well. So if you want to use them for spices or that sort of thing, they're usually less expensive than other canisters. So maybe that's what the non-egg people do with them. Stars and bars. This is a bigger, more sumptuous fairy lamp than a lot of the other ones, and you can put a bigger candle in it. and that's why I buy these, even though they're something we see a lot more often. They were done in the 70s. The eye bath is a useful thing from the 1930s in cobalt. Pair of end of the trail bookends from about the same time, and then we have Fenton Lime Custard, a really nice tall compote in the back. The lime really glows. It glows even without a black light, but it really glows under a black light. And then some moon and stars. We've got the ashtray, and we've got the swung vase. I've got another swung vase in green. In the early 90s, we started seeing a lot of Vaseline glass novelties being made by little American firms in the Midwest. That lion mold is very similar to Fenton's, and they all herald back to pattern glass molds from the 1800s. And I got several pieces of Balique. I carried a lot of porcelain at the West Palm Beach show last year, and this year I don't really have too much other than some Asian pieces that I'll show you in a moment that are special, but I have a lot of nice Balique that is very inexpensive. And it seems like it's starting to pick up again, especially the shamrock pattern. This is one of the older and nicer things that I purchased this week. This is painted under the lid. This is Asian from the 19th century. It is late dynastic. It's got its handles in good shape, no breaks. That's important. I like the monkey sitting up in the tree. These are not super uncommon, but they are really nicely done. My friend who deals in Asian art and artifacts usually prices these somewhere in the $125 range, and I suspect that's what I'm going to try as well. This is a very nice Art Nouveau look in a tile, but it's actually done in Scotland. Douglas Hunter did these 1980s, 1990s. They're very nice and good quality. A viewer of ours was telling us that these jade bottom or stone bottom pieces with the bonsai are early post-war, and then they go to the Celadon in the 70s and 80s, which I remember growing up. Little brass bunny. We have Easter coming, so I have a bunch of Easter stuff, or a few pieces anyway, spread around, and I just put this stuff out so I could see it and figure out what I'm taking to the show and what I have to pack for other places. So this is not intended to be a display. I did sort of group things by color in order to make it easier when I get to the shows, though. This is Canton, and this is also Dynastic era. And I believe this little piece sells for about $65, if I'm not mistaken. And you can just, you sort of get a feel. Notice with Canton where the base is kind of a bluish. This one doesn't have a lot of wear, but this shape is not a modern shape. And then when you look at the detail in the work and the brush strokes and the way it flows, definitely you start to pick up on the fact that it's older. This is also older, quite old actually, 1830 Spode. But what's fun about this is cleated, which is another form of staple repair, these little cleats that hold the bowl together. And there are people who collect this just for that. And isn't it remarkable? I mean, you see a crack line on the other side, but you don't actually see those staples come through. So it must have been an amazing way to hold it together. This is before glue would do, so that's how people kept things together. And, you know, Spode was expensive hand-painted china in that era, so it would be worth repairing a little bowl like that. This is a nice Japanese lacquer box. It originally would have had a book inside, but it could be used for any number of things. And I just like the look of it. Those are from the early post-war period. This just had a fun look to it and reminded me of Florida, and I, of course, pick up boudoir items whenever I can. These plastic fantastic candelabras, they're funky looking, but and we're having a little candle droopage, but they really sell. They're this interesting clear plastic, and I would expect to see probably around $30 on that. And then I got a whole bunch of these, but this is probably the best of all. This is a shell display in a conch shell on top of it. This is the sort of thing that would have been sold roadside in Florida, and I got several of them. I'm going to take some to the show and then decide how to divvy up the others. So I mentioned boudoir, and I did get some nice things in that department too. This box is lovely, but it has damage, so that one actually is just there to sit there and make her look elegant. But she is elegant, actually. It's the Awakening by Vincent Klinsky, and it's got the SC Studio mark on it, which I've looked up before, and I don't believe it's Santini. I think it's another outfit that did these cast resin pieces, but these actually sell for $75 to $100 potentially. These two lovely ladies are Weilware from the 1930s. They don't sell for as much as they used to, but a lot of what he did was very cutesy, and these are more elegant, and they're very similar. I figure with the long dresses, they're more likely to sell to somebody who would like them on a dresser. There's the Weilware mark, made in California. Max Weil started his company in 1938. This one is a bud vase, and this one, notice the difference in the painting on the dress because these are all hand done. This one has a wider slot for more flowers and a more elaborate flower on her dress. So very cute. A couple of really nice abalone pieces here. This one is from Mexico with a very nice liner. Maybe for little cigarillos originally. It's not sterling, but it is a very nice little piece. And then there's a thimble to go with it. I believe this is a German head. There was also the Goldscheider company that made similar pieces, but I think this chalk one was actually 1930s Germany, if I remember right. I know this one was because it still has its mark on it. This one's got the Bunte mark on the back. I do have a buyer for cologne and perfume, and my picker has been paying attention to what I buy. And so I now have some Obsession, some Opium, and some White Shoulders. None of these are ancient bottles of these things, but at the price of what this sells for, it all still smells good, and it is collectible for the dresser. And then there's this kitty cat. This is really a fun one. I like the orange. It's the Sophisticat by Max Factor. I paid half of that price. They're worth a little more than that, so I'm going to bump it up. Got to be honest. You know, when you're buying from a dealer, you're usually paying a pretty good percentage on the dollar. And so if they've already priced a lot of stuff, well, if the prices are right, you leave them on and then you save yourself a hassle. But if the prices are a little low on a few things, well, that makes up for other things, like sometimes you make a mistake when you buy so much and you miss something having damage or that sort of thing. So it all comes out in the wash. This looks like the Mastermind game when I was a kid. I remember girls in my junior high school having these purses that looked like they were made of game pieces in the late 70s. And this one, I think I paid $10 for it. If you're enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please check out our membership packages under the dash line in the description of any video. We really appreciate our members for the extra support that they give. And thank you also to our Patreon folks. All of your support is very helpful and helps us produce more content for everyone to enjoy. And speaking of invigorating, I just love 50s, 60s kitsch. I have to admit, but mine tends to go more towards panthers and fishes and things like that, rather than smiling faces and that sort of thing. I think those are cute too, but for my own collecting, I like this seashore stuff, and it's a pretty interesting variety. This has a nice Murano label on it, and this is an old label, so let's show you. This isn't a high-end studio, but it is Murano. It is real. It's from about 1970. It should be worth $100 to $125, I would think. I showed this in the Mount Dora video because my neighbor had it and she retired. And so she sold this to me. This is signed Weiland. He's very well known in Hawaii. I really like the flamingo stuff, and this is actually more of a pitcher or a ewer because of the way it's shaped. It's American bisque. Let's examine that for a minute for you folks who haven't heard this one before. So American bisque on the foot has this hourglass shape between the dry parts that gets glazed, and then the dry parts are what keep it off the kiln so that it doesn't stick to the kiln when they fire the glaze on. The Panther is a great big one. Not a TV lamp, just a Panther, but just a Panther this size is pretty good nowadays. This, on the other hand, is a TV lamp, and I'm going to see if we can turn it on. There you go. A lot of people will actually put a colored bulb in these. They're just fantastic. It's actually a homemade piece from the 1960s, but such an incredible glaze and just so deep ocean looking. I'm very excited about that. Of course, 1970s lucite tableware in blue colors and deeper colors and tends to do well. You don't see these applied floral displays from the 1940s in this size very often. Usually they got broken when they were that big, falling off tables and such, and that was the end of them. So I thought that was really cool. And then the old grotto used to be a lamp, isn't anymore, but it's still very encrusted looking and old Florida souvenir, absolutely. You can argue over whether it's good taste or bad, but it's certainly flavor. And she will be a great flavor on the table because I sold the Hager Mermaid water fountain. And so I need something else that can be a big eye catcher. And well, she's definitely it. This is a 1980s piece. You can tell by the sound that it's a big hunk of resin when they were first starting to do that. But she is a mermaid and she's glamorous. And she, believe it or not, is about 40 years old. This also from the same era. This is Royal Hager. And then behind we have a very nice Moroccan box. That should sell probably in the $65 range at least, early 1900s. But look at all the detail. I just think that's so splendid. Got two of these hanging shelves, which is great. I haven't had any for a while. This is going to help redo my mall space. And I might even manage to take one to the antique show if I can figure out how to set it up. This one I put all my little kitschy cutie things, Easter related. These little figures are Rio Hondo. If you stick to the ones that are a little better detailed, these are actually starting to sell for $12 and $15 a piece now. They were inexpensive novelties in the 1940s, made in the Los Angeles area. The cute little kitty cat, that's a 50s piece. And then there's this. It is a candy container. It is marked Jeanette. And Jeanette Glass out of Pennsylvania did a whole lot of things, but candy containers were definitely a specialty for them. And because Easter is coming, that guy's probably worth about $20 to $25. Similar price on the Anna Lee. The Anna Lees are cute in a way that some people love and some people don't, but the people who love them really do. And what they want to see is that these were made in New Hampshire. A later production offshore. The serious collectors are not interested. Bell System bells. There's 5 of them on this shelf, along with a Pilgrim glass elephant, a Moser dog, and a little terrier from Japan. This shelf has one thing I've always wanted to have on my bucket list. And no, it's not the cool Royal Hager Daisy or the McCoy Sealandia vase or this Royal Hager Bud vase that only costs $2 at the thrift store. Or the resin grapes or the Viking glass. Not even this thing, which doesn't have a signature but looks a lot like Mark Belair to me, but it's her. This is a fantastic TV lamp made in Ohio of all places because, of course, exotic women with Black Panthers live in Ohio. I just think she's amazing. She's early 50s. She has one very small chip underneath the bottom that is not in any way affecting her. And so I went ahead and bought her anyway because she's just fantastic. So I've got 2 TV lamps, which is great because they sell really well here in Florida. And I haven't had any for a couple of seasons that were interesting. And then there's the big fiberglass dogwood tray from the late 60s, early 70s. More grapes, a Sputnik glass set. Very cool little Viking frog. I think this one even has the label on it somewhere. Yes, there it is. Viking handmade right underneath. And I sold the Viking piece I had at the last show, so that's a good omen. Gonder Swan, I like that piece. This is also Gonder, the blue piece in front. Weeping Silver rather than Weeping Gold, a little harder to find. Stanford made the tall pink and black vase, and Hull Pottery made the goose wall pocket. This is marked Monkey Pod wood, and Monkey Pod is certainly a little better. Koa wood is even more expensive, but Monkey Pod wood in a nice 1950s shape. I'll put a little oil on that and polish it up, and that should sell right away. So should any of these silly lucite alligators. I've got a couple now. And this is Mexican pottery. I just love the way his little head bobs around. That was a 1970s novelty, as I remember. Wooden bird ashtray with the toucan. Here are several John Perry pieces. The dolphins, smaller dolphins, the double orca, which is one of the better pieces, and this little guy. These are all selling for $20 to $30 each on average. A glug jug from Bermuda, so when you pour the water or booze or whatever out, it goes glug, 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 glug because of the shape. That was originally done in the Victorian times by an English company. This was done in the 1970s, approximately, also by an English company called Dartmoor Pottery. This is an obscure company that I would like to know more about, so I might just put this one aside. It is marked Clayton. I don't really know Clayton ceramics, but I do like the little shell. And speaking of shells, we have all these other shell displays. I'll take some of these with me to the show and put some out for sale. You know, it's Florida Roadside Kitsch from the 1960s, but that's been a while now. Also Florida Roadside Kitsch from that era, the ashtray and the other lucite pieces with the abalone. This, on the other hand, is Victorian, and it seems to be part of a fountain, or it could be electrified as a sconce. It didn't cost a lot, and I thought it was neat looking. It's very serpentine in a seashore sort of way. Say that 10 times fast. This mosaic stuff I just love. I did an estate sale in St. Pete at a house that had a floor that was like that, and I thought, well, that's unusual. And I was over in Daytona Beach making this buy, and these folks got these because they had a floor also from the 1950s that was all these colors too. And then more lovely Art Nouveau Victorian ornamentation and hardware. This hook here with the dolphin is nice. These are definitely Art Nouveau. You can tell with the sunray, right about 19 teens. And then these ormolu pieces likely came, notice ormolu a little golder than brass because it has more of a gold tone applied to it. And these would have likely been off French furniture of some sort. They'll make a nice ornament for something now. This is Nybro from Sweden. I'm starting to buy their stuff if I think the patterns and shapes are interesting, and I thought these really were. I think it's got the Nybro label on it to show you. Yes, it's a little bit faint. Some Sid & Striker and Peggy Carr pieces. I do like the fused glass. It's very springy. And speaking of spring, well, here is the spring fling for me. I really wanted to pull in some colors that are going to be seasonal because I know a lot of people down here who are setting up for the season, well, they're decorating their house, and these colors are just fun and pleasing and soothing to a lot of people. So I mixed them up with the McCoy Blossom Time. This mask, I believe, is more contemporary, but I liked it. I've seen them around. Another Sid & Stricker piece. Fostoria Heirloom with a heron by some American pottery. I'm not sure who this is. It does not seem like California pottery to me, unless it's Caliente. So I'll see if I can find anything out about that. The beaded flowers. Those are a nice thing from the past that people really enjoy as adornments. Great little Capri Blue Murano bowl. Great dark blue Blanco bowl with a rather funky Millefiori turtle in it, and a very wide-eyed cloisonne owl jar. Speaking of owls, behind this very pretty Italian tollware lamp is this very 1970s macrame owl. Yes, I broke down and bought a macrame owl. Can you believe it? And then this piece, landscapes are popular now. This is actually a factory-made piece from Spain from about 1960 that someone brought home, but the trees look a lot like the Royal Poinciana in Florida, and the turquoise background is nice. The wall shelf has a whole bunch of stuff on it too. You see some nice little Pilgrim crackle glass novelties. They were very fond of these shapes that were long in the neck and low in the waist. A couple of tiara fairy lamps here, this one with the daisies, this one in the sandwich pattern. I wanted to have a few more economical fairy lamps because I have a few expensive ones, and I noticed at the Mount Dora show that, yes, people did buy the expensive ones, but some folks really wanted to have the option. So that's also Pilgrim glass. I think Indiana did the blue ashtray, and Royal Copenhagen did this nice little cigarette box. This piece is Rumrill. George Rumrill didn't make his own stuff. He had other people make it for him. This would have been done by Red Wing. My understanding is that Rumrill was a bit of a drinker, had a big fight with the Red Wing people, and they said, you can go somewhere else. So then he went to Shawnee Pottery, and so the later wares are different. Bluebirds of Happiness, we have the pair on the heart for Valentine's Day. We have the pair here. And then we have a pair of rather fine German porcelain pheasants, male and female, and this is by the Epps Porcelain in Germany. These are very pretty, and they're hand-painted, and they are actually older than they look. They are pre-war, and they sell for pretty good prices, sometimes as much as $145, $150 for a pair. The bunny is cute. I'm not sure who made him. And then we have the Lilac doves. Lots of hearts, things kissing. Valentine's Day is near. Well, this is what I got when I went out with my friend in the Mount Dora area, and I got to shop Mount Dora's shops and especially vendor malls and thrift stores instead of the show. It was fun to go back there and see what everybody else sees while I have to work the show. And there were some cool things. I got a couple of pieces of, I believe these are Reuben glass. I don't think they're by the Art Deco company out of Canada. This looks like a Peggy Carr bowl. And I mean, these things were pretty inexpensive. This guy, Pottery Craft. And I always look for the Pottery Craft faces because 70s face pottery was a big deal. It started as a studio phenomenon. It was very expensive at first, and then companies like Pottery Craft started making it, and then everybody started making it. These are really nice. They're Viking. This one was $6 at half off at the last estate sale I went to. And the larger one, I think I paid about $15 for that, if I remember right. Viking glass apple. I always like the shot glasses with the eyes painted behind. And I did get one piece of Wedgwood because that is the Rolls-Royce emblem, and it was only $6. And because it's the Rolls-Royce emblem, that one's a little more expensive. This scarf looks like some designer thing like, ooh, maybe Schiaparelli. And it is signed Burger King. But it's vintage, it's retro, and you know, old fast food uniform sell, so who knows? I just thought it was worth a try. It was $1.15 with the discount. 3 more pieces of Belique, actually a set here. And they're later marks, but they're nice. And I just thought since I'm going to have a little, I might as well have a nice collection. These two with the colors are a little bit more unusual. Later green marks from the 20th century and gold marks from right around the turn of this century. And then a couple more Afghans. I thought this Kelly green and white was definitely high contrast. And then this one looks like every vest that Karen Carpenter wore in the early 1970s. One of the things I was the most happy to find at the estate sales this weekend was this. It is a fireplace screen. It has the big jeweled stained glass, which means it's European. It's very heavy, so it won't fall down. It's got a tubular copper brass alloy, it appears, for the frame. And this was $60. I really believe it's worth possibly triple that. And it's just a very pretty piece. And I am not going to use it as a fireplace screen because we're in Florida. Not that many people use their fireplaces if they even have one. But it would be great in a boudoir as a little dressing screen, a little separation, and something to hang jewelry from. And that's exactly how I plan to use it at the show. Several pieces of Pyrex in 1970s patterns. And, you know, I price this stuff to sell. And so I do still sell the Pyrex. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, the prices have gotten so high, we can't sell it. Well, then make your prices just a little less than everyone else's. Esquire, this is a great magazine, April of 1943. And it has its original pinup. She is absolutely patriotic. I don't think that uniform will pass regulation, though. A little bit of fancy porcelain under here. 2 Royal Albert cup and saucers, and they're cute patterns. One's carnations, one's just a floral spray from the 50s, but they were only $3 a set. And those are sure sellers at 8 to 12 every time. This is Limoges. I didn't pay a lot for it, I think $5. But it is a soap dish, and that's why I went ahead and got it, because it's something a little more unusual. I thought it could make a nice dresser box, but it does have this liner so that if you put soap in it, the soap doesn't get stuff on it from above, and it doesn't swim in its own juices and turn into a puddle of goo. The silver at the last estate sale was half off, and I wish that I had a scale to measure out the big set of flatware that they had, but I think they still wanted $1,000 for it. But I did get this bag for $20. Now it's weighted, which means that it feels very heavy. It's not, because this is just foil over a base in these candles, but the foil is still probably somewhere in the 2.5 ounce range. And so since I paid $20 and silver's about 20 an ounce, I figure I got it for half price. And I wholesale that because it all has dents and is not in great shape, and that's why it was cheap. Do It, right out of the 70s, along with the fondue forks. I keep seeing really neat fondue bowl and all the stuff in great shape and no forks because they got separated or thrown away. So I thought I'd put those aside, and then the next time I see a really groovy looking fondue pot, well, then I can pick it up. The viewers sent me some of these little things like the owl and the little game and the little perfume flask and this thing that looks like Bill Gates is really manic. Bought the little Lefton owl for $1.50 at an estate sale. The lighter here is a Benson and Hedges advertisement. That was half price, so it was $7. $6 for the larger Swiss Army knife. Not a super old one, but again, Swiss Army, it is Victorinox, so it wasn't a fake, and it was $6, and the little one was $3, so had to get those. These M&Ms apparently came from the White House. That is George W. Bush's signature. Nice little Boy Scout compass in here from right around 1960. It's actually a very good compass, and the plastic is so you could use it and scale it on a map. So a lot of people I know who are grown men actually like that compass, and it should sell for a pretty good price. I won't charge $20 for it, but I'll get close. An old shoe mailer. It's hard to believe that at one time in Big Rapids, Michigan, you could mail a piece of wood with a tag and it would get there intact. Now you pack things with 10 miles of bubble wrap and they don't get there intact. And then last but not least, I just love the bells. Little tinkly bells. This one that has a whole bunch of Latin, you see Leo, Aquila, the pelican. It's just very fun. And then this had a nice ring and is clearly old. You can see the cast iron handle with the brass bottom and this big old gnarly thing to ring it. And so that one's likely to be right around the turn of the last century. This boxy pattern puts me in mind of arts and crafts design, and there's some stars on it. It actually is pretending to be older. It says Puritan, but it is not from 1492. And neither were the Puritans. Well, now comes the big job, pricing this, integrating it into the other merchandise, and deciding what's going to the antique show next weekend in West Palm Beach, and what is going on to shops and other future events, maybe a few online sales. I do have something cooked up, posting more in the community tab as it develops. I'm just sitting here with my friend Montzella Campbell. Montzella, wow, that's a name. And I'm having such a good time wallowing in all this fresh stock, but I've got to pack and get ready for the show now. So off I go, and we'll see you down the road here on YouTube or at a real world show near you. Come to Florida if you're cold. It's a great time to be here. If you enjoyed this video, check out this one. Also, click thumbs up to like this video and check the description for information about our Patreon, our memberships. We've got a lot of different levels with different perks and bonus videos and early content. Also, please do check out our website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal help. And we'll see you again for more adventures in the antique and vintage community soon. Bye for now.